We photograph big events, big ballroom weddings, high-end events. We don't have the luxury of doing outdoor, beautiful California light weather. So I have to go into these large venues that many times are lit by candlelight, low light, very dim. And while the cameras today can shoot at amazingly high ISOs and shoot cleanly, it doesn't mean the quality of light is good. So Speedlights are my tool of choice. And because we have radio capability with communicating from our master or our Speedlight transmitter to our off-camera Speedlights in individual groups, it's kind of limitless to what we could do. So if you need to, you could have up to 15, 16 different Speedlights out there, all within 5 different groups, and mix and match those modes. So you could have one in TTL, one in manual mode, turn one on, turn one off, adjust their flash output to whatever you think it should be. TTL is amazing. I shoot roughly 90% of everything I do in TTL, which is through the lens metering. Right? It just works for me. It's quick. Now, if I'm doing a static portrait in a background or family and group portraits, then most often I will go to manual mode. And the reason being is the way TTL operates is it emits a pre-flash. The camera tells a Speedlight to emit a pre-flash. It calculates the proper exposure. The light comes back through the lens, and then the camera communicates to the Speedlight more or less light. It's basically the way TTL works. So if you have changing tonalities, if I put a white dress in a bride in front of a black backdrop, depending on how I frame it, it could blow out the dress. If I get a lot of the black background and a little bit of white in it, well, it's going to try and even out that exposure, and it'll give me too much light. My favorite light modifiers from Westcott happen to be this perfect pair. And I call this a perfect pair because we have a shoot-through umbrella and then a medium softbox with a grid. There isn't much that I can't do with those two light modifiers. They give me lots of versatility and lots of options, which we're going to go through in our shooting demo. The shoot-through umbrella is great. It's probably the most forgiving and easiest to use light modifier because it's very diffused light. I hate using the term softbox because it's essentially a direct light source, and the light from a softbox characteristically is harder, more direction than an umbrella. An umbrella is actually softer, more diffused light. So I like to think in terms of diffusion or specularity and direct lighting. The grid within it allows you to confine the light and control how much it spreads out. So if I wanted to photograph somebody in front of this backdrop and not pollute it with light, I would add the grid because it would keep the light very linear and focused on my subject. So this is a rapid box. This could be a main light, a side light, a rim light. I use it a lot for details and portraits. So now let's get into some actual events. This is actually just 2 lights, one off camera on the halo, the shoot-through umbrella, and then one bare flash as a backlight. You know, I say this time and time again, I am a backlightaholic, right? I like images that pop off the scene. So that backlight acts as a separation light. So you could see the nice separation light, the little bit of subtle rim on her arm. If there wasn't any lighting there, the scene would start to go black in the background and appear very, very flat. Now, when we get into doing, you know, the big family portraits like this, of course, going to use big or larger light modifiers. This was about 2 hours of family portraits, all the different combinations. I still use the rapid boxes for 2 side lights, rimming them to pop them off the background. And I'll just use 2 of these, one off camera left and one off camera right. But the key is how you place them. Most people tend to point the center right at the center person. If we do that, you're going to increase the amount of shadow in between people. So if I'm doing this group, all of you here, and I had to photograph it, I would take this, point it towards you, the last person, and then I would have this exact same light modifier over here, pointed towards the last person on that end. That way, the light is going to wrap around everybody, be really, as you can see, soft, beautiful light. Now, because I was doing 2 hours of these formal type photographs, I'm using strobes. Yes, I have done these with Speedlites. You just have to shoot slower. You have to pace yourself. Even with a Bolt battery, which does improve, which I use the Bolt batteries on these, it does improve recycle time tremendously, but it's still just a Speedlight. So that's the window light is the main light and 2 lights in the back of the hotel suite pointing towards me. If your particular light in the back is giving you too much light, you could turn it down. If I didn't have another light in the back corner of that room, this image would just fall off flat. After a while, you start to see in terms of light, and then you start to see like, oh, this light modifier would work great for that. You know, this one, it wasn't such a nice day outside, and the window wasn't beaming with light, so I had to help it out. So I took 2 Speedlights behind the curtains, one left, one right, bounced them into the window frame, and it made it look like more sunlight was coming through. And then one rapid box was the main light, right off here, camera left, filling it in. So it looks really natural. Flood the wall with light, washing it out, and then using one of these rapid boxes in the foreground. Okay, so let's just play with white balance at first. So I use daylight as my baseline, and the reason being is because auto white tries to filter out any color shifts. If it's tungsten, if it's fluorescent, anything like that. If we're going to shoot in here, we're going to start off at daylight. All right, so daylight is our established white balance. So then if we go to manual mode, and we pick an ISO, well, let's leave it at 640 for a second. So if we choose an aperture of 6.3, we're still getting some ambient light. You could see the catch lights on our face. You could see our histogram is way towards the shadow side, toward the left. So it's grossly underexposed. My next thing is I'm going to share with you is here's where you could see shutter speed affecting the ambient light. So if I slow down the shutter speed to somewhere around the 20th, now we have more ambient light coming in, okay? So that's where I'm trying to show you how shutter speed is equal to ambient light, aperture is the output that we're going to ask from our flash, ISO is how sensitive the camera is to light, thereby how hard the speed light has to work, okay? With me so far? All right, so we're going to raise the shutter speed up because I want 0 influence from the ambient light. So let's go to 200. All right, we still have some, so we're going to lower the ISO from 640. Let's go to 200, just arbitrary. So virtually no ambient light. We're going to use on-camera direct flash, and then we're going to get it off camera right away. So you can actually see how we can evolve this light. Everything looks good. If I was going to shoot with direct flash, I would say, okay, I could live with that. But let's get the flash off camera, and I'm going to use a Speedlight transmitter. So we're going to start off with this at 20 millimeters. And I'm just going to pop it right about here. And I like the shadow to fall a little bit naturally, so down instead of up her nose. Nice smile. Here we go. This should be getting better. Just getting the flash off camera, it's helping, but it's still direct hard light. Now remember when I said the way ETTL works? It's reading a lot of her white shirt, thereby underexposing a lot of the dark, right? Because the flash emits a pre-flash, reflects off her white shirt, goes through the lens. So I know this already. If I'm going to live in TTL, what to do is I will go flash exposure compensation, and I will bring it up. So I bring it up plus 2/3 to start. That's usually where I begin all of my TTL exposures. So now we have a better exposure on Tatiana. So Bob, would you zoom that flash head to 200, please? All right, so now what we did is we zoomed the flash head right in. Good. When you zoom the flash head in, it's actually magnifying the light, thereby making it appear a little bit more intense. See the harder shadow on her? All we did was zoom the flash head. That's all we did to modify it. And let's throw on the halo. And I'm going to set the flash head because I want to fill up the entire front of the diffusion area. So I'm going to go 24. And I'm going to have the flash facing forward. So the light has been softened on her. The actual shadow wraps around and it's softer. Now, let's just bring in this rapid box. And this is in group D. And we're going to have the grid on it. So I have group A, and I'm going to go to my D, and I'm immediately going to lower it to -3 because I don't need much light coming from that side. I just want to fill it in. Don't want to overpower it. Boom. Got a nice highlight on the side of her face. We can add in the backlight. And this is C, that's D. And then this one is going to match that one exactly. I'm going to take D and be -2, C -2. So they're the same. A is in the halo. We're all good. So now she's popping off the dark background. So now let's leave the two lights where they are, and let's change this from an umbrella, shoot-through umbrella, to a softbox. So again, the big plus with the Apollos and the Halos is you don't need a speed ring, travel well, pop it up, same versatility, flash forward, flash backward. So I'm going to turn the flash head to shoot into the box for this one. Now we also have an inner diffusion baffle for this as well. So if you really want to get soft with your light, or I shouldn't say soft, but more diffused, we have the inner and the outer. So here's the inner diffusion. We have another diffusion panel, and then we could also put the grid. It's recessed, so it's going to give us more directionality. Now watch what we're going to get for shadows. Very nice, thank you. Good. Different characteristic, different look, different feel of light. Now for this one, I want to go a little bit more low key on camera, right? And I'm going to take the D light and drop it lower. There we go. So this is the power of TTL, and I really like that. Or just having the wireless capabilities. I don't have to walk over there. I don't have to change anything. I don't have to remeter. I don't have to touch it. That looks great. So I thought green might look good on a black background. So I'm going to put a theatrical green gel, and we're going to put this in group E. All right, and I know it's going to try and light up a black background, so I'm going to start off at -1 with the flash exposure. Cool. Cool. So now we're going to take our lights, we're going to remove the grids, and the reason now I'm going to remove the grids is we want this whole thing lit. So I'm going to turn off the A light so I can see exactly what the background lights are doing. I'm going to get those set first. Even lighting. Now the way you know you have a proper exposure for your background is you have a nice, crisp, defined edge around her. But you could say, you know what, I want something a little bit more dreamy and ethereal. Okay, so we take and go from a quarter power, just go big or go home, we'll go to full. Now I'm pumping so much light off that white background, it's going to wrap around and we start getting a milky edge, and we're beginning to get spill over on Tatiana, right? Neither way is wrong. It's whatever style or look you are going for. So I'm going to go back to that quarter power. Bob, can you bring over the Apollo, please? And we'll make that the main light. That's our A light. And I'm going to leave that one in TTL. There we go. Good. Bam! I like the medium softbox for this because it gives us a defined shadow. It gives her face some character. Your homework assignment is go home and practice. Get that flash off camera, even if you're just bouncing it off the ceiling.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.